Hello, viewers, both flesh and fleece. I'm Kelby.
I'm Lola.
I'm Emma, and together we three are the NerdStreet Hoodlums.
The notorious lady nerd gang, here to give you unadulterated opinions on all things lady and nerd culture.
On March 26, 1931, the world met the man who would teach us all to live long and prosper. That's right, Leonard Nimoy was born in Boston, Massachusetts, and he went on to win our hearts and brains with his half-Vulcan, half-human character of Spock on Star Trek, as well as crooning a cute little ditty about a certain hobbit on the side. And, fun fact, he was such a popular actor in the late 60s, early 70s that many fans started a writing campaign for him to play the role of Aragorn in a Lord of the Rings movie that was being considered at the time.
This week in Nerd Nowstery, Muppets Most Wanted, the sequel to 2011's The Muppets, premieres in theaters across North America. According to the official plot summary from Disney, Muppets Most Wanted takes the entire Muppet gang on a global tour, selling out grand theaters in some of Europe's most exciting locations, including Berlin, Madrid, and London. But mayhem follows the Muppets overseas when they find themselves unwittingly entangled in an international crime caper headed by Constantine, the world's #1 criminal and a dead ringer for Kermit, and his dastardly sidekick, Dominic Bad Guy. Or is it Bad G? Bad G? Anyway, he's clearly not a nice person. Tina Fey is in the movie, and if you're a girl and she's not your role model, then what are you doing with your life? Also, the only main female Muppet character, Miss Piggy, has historically been the most popular with viewers. So obviously we're gonna be talking Muppets tonight. But first,
Alright guys, I want to talk about some serious shiz. You ever seen those posts on Facebook that are like, when did this become hotter than this? And it's got like one body type of ladies versus another body type of ladies. Or there's this one Facebook post that's going around about Audrey Hepburn versus Marilyn Monroe. Why do we feel the need to do that? Why do we need to tear down one lady in order to build another one up? This whole Divergent thing with Katniss and the main character from Divergent. Why do we need to pit them against each other? Let's just celebrate ladies. Let's celebrate all the ladies. Ladies are rad. Solidarity, you guys. Don't be douches. Love the ladies. Love them all.
Muppets, guys.
Yeah!
Comes out in theater tonight.
Yeah! It's time to play the music. It is time to light the lights. It's time to meet the Muppets on the Muppet Show tonight.
I think that one of the things that's really important to address about the Muppets is, well, you know, there's only one female, well, there's multiple female Muppet characters, but there's only one who's really a main character, and that's Miss Piggy.
My favorite thing about Miss Piggy is that, so her characterization, Frank Oz said that he based her personality on, like, the idea of it was either a trucker or a biker.
It's a truck driver.
It's a truck driver who secretly wanted to be a woman.
In terms of characterization, she is one of the only three-dimensional characters on the show. Even some of the most popular characters like Fozzie or Gonzo are largely two-dimensional. Whereas Miss Piggy has all these levels to her and is really ultimately kind of a realistic portrayal of a woman. And one of the things that I want to bring up about her portrayal in the last Muppets movie, the one that Jason Segel wrote in 2011, is that in that movie, she's the only character who's gone on to have a successful life without the Muppets. The thing that really bugs me about when people are talking about Miss Piggy, a lot of the times I've overheard girls especially saying things like, oh my gosh, I love Miss Piggy, she's such a bitch. She is just an incredibly assertive character. She knows what she wants, she goes after it, and she's not a bitch in the slightest because she's not mean-spirited.
It's that whole thing that's kind of happening now where they're trying to change the word bossy.
Yes.
They're trying to get rid. It's that same thing. Like,
yeah,
Miss Piggy is not bossy. She's a boss. Everybody's first experience with the Muppets.
It was a combination of, I remember seeing the Muppet Babies, and I also remember seeing Sesame Street and having my mom explain to me that they were the same thing, essentially.
I can't really pinpoint mine. It was like a ton of stuff happening at once because I watched Eureka's Castle a lot as a child on Nick Jr., and then I also watched The Muppet Show when they would show it on, like, Nick at Night. And then there were just other Muppet things that were happening, like, you know, like Labyrinth and
Dark Crystal. I loved The Dark Crystal. That was my favorite movie when I was like 3. I did have to hide behind the couch whenever the Emperor died at the beginning of the movie. And he crumbles. In Dark Crystal, the heroine, Kira, I really always liked in that movie that she had powers that Jen didn't.
I recently watched it last year at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. They were having a special screening.
So
It'd been so long since I'd seen it. I had forgotten how absolutely useless
Jen is. Jen is completely useless.
Kira gets everything done. Like, until Jen meets Kira, nothing happens.
Nothing happens for
And then
him.
he meets Kira and she's like, oh, I'm just gonna handle this for you.
Yep. First, I'm gonna prevent you from drowning and getting eaten by this bog monster, and then I'm gonna basically do your whole quest for you.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, was started by another female character, Agra, another Frank Oz character who is amazing.
Agra's so cool.
Without Agra and without Kira, nothing gets done in Jen's quest at all. I think as a kid, I was just weirdly into movies that were sort of scary.
I feel like that's the kind of childhood movies that were made when we were kids.
Yeah,
because,
I guess we didn't have a choice.
Labyrinth kind of had some really scary stuff in it.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking. I fell even more in love with Labyrinth than I was with Dark Crystal. I loved Sarah, and just the older I get, the more I love and appreciate that movie, because it is a movie about a girl who's not entirely comfortable with growing up.
The reason that I loved Labyrinth so much as a kid is the same reason I hated so many fantasy stories. I read a lot of fantasy, I watched a lot of fantasy, and the thing that made me want to punch holes in walls was always, I'm now the king of your people, and I have this beautiful wife, and I have all these things I never had back home. And now I have to leave, and I'll never see any of you again. Just the fact that at the end of the movie, it was that worst fear of, you know, oh great, now all the fun's over again, and she has to, like, be happy that she's back in her shitty life.
Right.
And then she just goes, oh wait, no, you know what? Let's keep partying.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it's like she gets to, like, be in her world, but she has all her friends too, and I was like, okay.
Lola, weren't you talking earlier today about David Bowie in Labyrinth?
About being old enough to know that there was something uncomfortable about how tight his pants are, but
You sort of liked it.
but you still sort of liked it. Like, you're like, I feel like those pants are not supposed to be that tight.
Yep.
And I'm totally okay with it.
Yep. And why do I keep looking there? I think they do, paint him to be a romantic character in that film, even though he is the bad guy.
Right. He's kind of like the Phantom in the Phantom of the Opera. You're not supposed to like really root for him because he does awful things, but you feel for him a lot.
Yeah.
He does everything that his love interest wanted, although he went about it completely the wrong way.
Yeah.
So you kind of feel for him a little bit, and you're just like, man, if you weren't so goddamn evil, this could be awesome, but you're a horrible person, and this isn't gonna work.
The fatal flaw that the Goblin King character makes is to assume that Sarah is your stereotypical teenage girl who's really interested in being in love. Mm-hmm. And she's just not.
No, that's never something that she like plays at.
Yeah.
Before she gets to enter the fantasy world of the Labyrinth, it's never being like a fair maiden waiting for a prince to save her or reciting words to a prince. It is, I'm here to take that shit back because you don't get to have that.
It boils down to the fact that the words that break the spell of this entire situation are a woman saying to a man, you have no power over me.
This is why I love Jim Henson.
Yeah.
And this is why I love the Muppets, just because, like, the Jim Henson Company was so not afraid of, like, just breaking stuff down and inventing things and just pushing the envelope about what could be done in films, what could be done with monsters, like they were revolutionary.
Absolutely. And henceforth revolutionary in their treatment of female characters. Because they were being so revolutionary with everything that they were doing, they were like, well, the girls are in charge here. All right, gang, that's it for this episode of the NerdStreet Hoodlums. Once again, like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Twitter at NerdStreet. Find us on Tumblr, Instagram, Facebook, all the social media things. Spread the social media love, y'all.
This week's bonus footage is something new and different. You guys are super supportive and so cool, and you're asking us all these awesome questions, and we want to answer those for you. So this week's footage is called Thanks to YouTube, where we will be picking a question from our previous episodes and answering it. You want to know information about like what we think and feel. That's rad.
And if you want to give us more things to talk about in the weeks to come, or just say hello, leave your questions, comments, concerns, general howdies down in the box below, and we'll see you next week.
Welcome to Thanks to YouTube, the new segment where we respond to your comments on our YouTube videos. So this week we're going to start with a question that came to us from Tallest Silver. And she asked Lola and I who our favorite senshi were in the Sailor Moon episode, because Kelby was pretty clear about who her favorite was.
If I could have a neon sign that said Sailor Uranus, I probably would have had it.
Now, while we did answer this question in the uncut version of our Sailor Moon chit chat from that episode, we thought we'd go ahead and address that question here as well.
Give you sort of a in a nutshell version.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, I think my favorite senshi is Sailor Venus right now. It changes a lot, but I'm gonna commit and say Sailor Venus because her orange outfit's really cute, and I like that in the manga she wears a cool chain around her waist, and also she had an awesome sword in the past.
Mine was for many, many episodes. It was Sailor Venus. And then I got to the Outer Senshi, and I realized Neptune was my girl. Neptune is my girl. And we went into this and the other thing, but for the shortened version, it made me and Kelby realize that we are even more awkwardly sort of dating somehow, because I love Neptune.
And I
she
love
loves
Uranus. Our second question comes from user Kavalden, who asked which starter Pokemon we would like to choose, and who was our favorite.
I was a Pokemon Red kid. I actually chose all of the starter Pokemon at one point. The first one I ever chose was Bulbasaur, because I had read strategy guides that said that was gonna make your life easier at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
I know. I'm such a nerd. But ultimately, I think the one I would choose is Charmander, because usually I would base my starter Pokemon based on which Eevee I was gonna evolve my Eevee into, and I really liked Vaporeon, and I taught Vaporeon like ice moves as well as water moves. Ice Pokemon are awesome, by the way, and there wasn't any fire Pokemon that I felt particularly like, oh my gosh, I need to have this one. So that was why ultimately I went with Charmander, though I did enjoy having a Rapidash in my Bulbasaur days.
I didn't get a Game Boy until Pokemon Silver. My starter Pokemon, and I'm a horrible person because I don't remember the exact name of it. Maybe you guys can tell me. But it was the electric type one. And it was like this black and yellow one, and it was kind of like a cat. I just know that it was the electric one, and I loved that one, and I got really good at using it to fight. But because I had never really played a Pokemon game before, I didn't realize that the other Pokemon that you capture, you should also train those up too, because you're gonna end up getting in a gym where you can't fight with your main Pokemon. You're gonna have to bring somebody else out. So I got my ass kicked when I was trying to get my badge.
And as for which Pokemon I played, I didn't. I watched Digimon. But I was fond of the visual look of the ones that were like the ghost ones.
You do really well playing like the origin story of Agatha from the Elite Four. All of her Pokemon were ghost Pokemon.
Yeah, that's what